Welcome to Station Rotations with Tracy and Crista. We're figuring out other options to use during station rotation, so this video is going to give you a little bit more information about that. First, you need to figure out preparation for each of your station rotations. What do you want the students to be able to show you by the time they're done? So you have to begin with the end in mind. Really find some sort of concept, theme, or problem that you want to focus on for the day, whatever works best for your content area. Then you need to write good learning targets for each of the stations. That gives you focus, that gives clarity to what the students are going to be doing. Then you need to think about which resources are going to be needed at each station. Do you need headphones? Are you going to need copies of something? Are there going to be things that are hands-on? Do the students need to have an assignment to submit to? Really think about what each student is going to do at each station. Finally, you're going to clarify what product, if any, students are going to produce to show their learning. Are they going to hand things in? Are you going to take one group product? What are they going to produce at the end of the stations? Now, the essential questions that you want to ask yourself, really when you're discussing and you're thinking about doing station rotation, you figure out, where do I want the students to have depth of knowledge about my concept, theme, or problem? Or you can think, what are the different perspectives or viewpoints that my students can use to approach this learning? Say, for example, you're a social studies teacher and you're using one primary source document to talk about one of the battles of the Civil War, maybe Gettysburg. You would think about maybe 5 stations that you could look at for 5 different perspectives of that one event. That way the students would be able to have a well-rounded idea of something that's an incredibly complex topic. And then you think, how can I structure the stations to get that depth of knowledge or that different perspective from them? Now, one key is that you have to imagine that you are the student. Put yourself in their place and imagine that you are going to take 88 minutes to go through these stations in one block. Then you need to think, how am I going to keep them engaged? That means you need to plan a variety of modalities for them to do. You don't want all 5 stations to be online discussions. You really don't even want all your stations to be online. So think back to, how can you include some student creativity? How can you encourage ownership in the ideas and the depth of knowledge? How can they make their own learning? How can you differentiate for the various needs that might be in your classroom? And really, how can you keep them engaged for 88 minutes? You'll know that you've done stations right when the students look at you by the end of the period and say, wow, we're done already? That was fast. Now, today you have experienced discussions, you've experienced kind of a flipped video idea, and then you've experienced a hands-on thing. There are some other great station rotation options that we wanted to kind of cover with you today. Conferencing is really one of the things that has helped my classroom this year. It's allowed me to have the students working on other things while I can have one-on-one conversations with my students, specifically on their writing is what I used it for. So those conferencing times were focused, needs-based conversations one-on-one with the student. I tended to start out leading the conversation about areas of weaknesses, suggestions for improvement, but really once the students got used to conferencing with me, they led the conversation by saying, oh, I noticed this, I've decided to do this, next time I'll do this. These conferences are usually product or skills based. So for example, an art teacher could conference one-on-one with students about a process that they're creating an art project, or maybe a skills based on some sort of concept or micro concept within their unit. It's a great option for formative assessment, just that check-in with that individual student to see how their particular progress is going, give them some suggestions, and then let them move on. It's also a great opportunity for small group instruction to really differentiate for the needs on your students. Now, say for example, you have a group of students and you've done some formative assessment and you know that they're just not getting the skill that they need. You can group it so that they're together and you can change each station with you so that you can reteach for the ones who need reteaching, or you can enrich for the ones who already get it. Got it. Small groups allow for more interaction. Students are more likely to ask questions. They're more likely to have conversations. And you can also have that facilitated work time where you give students a problem or a project or a question or some sort of skills-based assessment, and they can have you there to help kind of look over their shoulder and guide them through that process. Finally, another great option is something that you can use with group work, whether it's cooperative learning, collaborative spaces, some sort of project that you want the students to do together, some sort of critical thinking that includes 21st century skills such as problem solving. This is also a great application base. So Tracy and I wanted you guys to understand that while Canvas is a great tool for stations, it's not something that we suggest for you to use every single minute of every single station. So some hands-on face-to-face collaboration, cooperation, and application are absolutely something that you can use to get some of that creativity and ownership into the students' stations. Now, the big idea you need to ask yourself is, where are you as a teacher best utilized? Station rotations are not meant for the students to be busy and you sitting at your desk doing it. You are structuring opportunities for you to be able to work at a station with a small group who needs you. So you really have to think, out of all of the skills and all of the stations, how can I meet small group or one-on-one with my students to best fit their needs? It's getting that time carved out in the class period to do interventions, to make relationships, and to really just help your students connect with you on a smaller setting. So instead of replacing yourself, you're really just chunking out your time into smaller groups with the students. Now, these are not exhaustive. So we've already talked about a lot of things, from discussions to videos, flipped videos, to creation stations, all sorts of different things. Please feel free to reach out to some more independent online tools for some of your stations. In order for station rotations to be considered blended learning, you have to have at least one online portion of one station. So you can use TED Talks or Khan Academy videos. You can get lesson plans online. You can make those engaging and substantial. You can allow students to actually perform and do research. Maybe you have some guided inquiry questions, and they can use search engines and databases and inquiry to increase their ownership of a concept that you want them to be more independently functioning with. You can also include interaction with the students by using a back channel for students to have conversations with, just very casual things. Padlet.com is a great place for using ideas. You can use social interaction on social media, such as tweeting or things like that. Vocabulary.com and Quizlet.com are also great places for you to use independent online tools that you can just link from Canvas and use during the station. A lot of people have asked about the classroom setup. What do I want my classroom to actually look like? On the screen, you see just one example where they happen to have small group instruction with the teacher in one area, small group work at a different area, collaboration at a third area, and then their blended learning online station in another. I have moved my room to be set up into 5 pods of 6 desks, and I found that that has worked best for me, for the students to be able to move from pod to pod. But really, the big idea here is that your classroom needs to be set up so that it works for you and for your students for what they're doing. Your goal of this is to create engaging stations for students to work with learning. You also want to create smaller learning communities within your classroom and to differentiate learning opportunities to meet all the students' needs. If done well, the block can just be flattened out so that each of your students gets the opportunity to work in a small group with those engaging activities to best meet their needs. So just remember that taking risks can lead to enhanced student achievement.